for a developer-oriented product, what are some of the critical metrics that you look at?
Few metrics. I'd say number one is time to first value. Second, I think, which is very helpful in terms of businesses.
How much of reliability today that you see code which is being generated by these tools?
Two things that I've noticed that really helps in reliability and future proofing is
16 years since I left coding in my career, but looks like coding and troubleshooting is becoming fun again.
Definitely.
What would be your advice for product managers or founders who are building dev-focused product?
If your user persona that you're trying to chase is developer, you at least need to understand the language they speak, right? That's number one. Number two, I think is...
Welcome back to this episode of Product Talk with Palti. I'm super excited to introduce my today's host, Rishabh Jolly. He's a senior product manager at Microsoft and leads the product strategy for Azure's application insights. He comes with a decade of experience in cloud computing and product management. Not only this, he also hosts a podcast called Curious Souls, where he invites tech leaders and business leaders, talks about their ideas, lessons learned, and their journeys. In today's conversation, Rishabh and I speak about what is it building a product for a developer's first mindset. How do you build product-led growth in such a tech product? We are talking about tech product and we don't talk about AI, not possible. So we speak a lot of things around what is the role AI plays in building such a tech product. How does it help in improvising the experience for the users? How does one measure the success metrics for such a product? And a lot more. So stay tuned in. HSB, Harishankar Singhania School of Business, is a new global technology-focused business school located in Jaipur. So, welcome Rishabh to this episode.
Thank you so much for having me, Malti. It's a pleasure to be here. Super excited to talk about like developer-focused products and how I've been, working in that area. Happy to share my wisdom, things I've learned so far, and also I'll paint a picture of how these things, the end consumer product and the developer product, how they overlap. So, yeah, super excited to be here. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And I'm sure the audience is going to find a lot of value in that. So, on that note, Rishabh, let's start. When somebody is thinking about a product for the developers community, right? What is the difference between how you approach a traditional B2C product or a B2B product versus a product designed more for the developers community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So, the way I think about the product is, right, developers, they hate marketing and they hate the, marketing fluffed up. What they really look forward to is a very focused developer or like a product-led product. Um, think about this scenario, like there's a CTO or like there's a e-commerce retail giant. There's a CTO who's a buyer and there's a developer who's a user of cloud, right? Now, CTO will go to different clouds, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, and there are different teams within that cloud, sales team per se, that will pitch to those CTOs why they should use their cloud, right? And the things that sales team would focus on is basically, hey, use our cloud because you'll get a higher, ROI. There'll be a bigger impact to your business. We have compliances, we have security, things that CTOs care about, right? Whereas developers, what they care about is like, hey, I know my team is using this cloud, but should I use the cloud tools that this cloud offers, or should I use a third-party tool that I can integrate with my cloud, right? Now, in that context, you would want to build a tool that fits into a developer's workflow, right? So the way I would do it is first meet the developers where they are, right? You think about where do developers go? The developers, they usually go to like their IDEs to write code, right? How can you meet them where they are versus having them go to a place where they want where you want them to go? That's never going to happen, right? GitHub Copilot does a fantastic job over here, right? They are built into the IDEs. You don't have to go separately. You just use Copilot within your ID, whatever ID you're using, and you can ask questions and you can get like ghost text from GitHub Copilot. That's one, right? Second is, how do you make it once they have discovered this, how do you make it super easy for them to onboard, right? Unlike B2C products, they don't require changes in the code, or they don't require authentication per se, or configurations or account setup and things like that. But if you are building a developer product, chances are they would require a Entra authentication. They would require multiple SDKs to onboard. In that context, how do you make it easy for these developers to onboard without having them change their code? Very close to what you offer to a product like Facebook, which is a customer product, right? So we actually did this back in early start of this year. We launched a feature called auto instrumentation. We kept on hearing from our customers, developers, that hey, we love this product, but it's very hard to onboard. I have to change my code. Sometimes I don't even have access to my code. Can you make it easy to onboard? And we launched something called auto instrumentation, where they just do a couple of clicks and boom, they can start using application insights and application monitoring. So that's the second. And the last one is, I think, what the developers they look for is that instant gratification, like the aha moment, right? How do you make them discover, easily onboard? And third, when they've onboarded, it just doesn't end there. You have to provide them value immediately. Otherwise they lose patience and they walk away. Can you provide them value within under 4 minutes, 5 minutes, for them to get that aha wow moment, that they're like, wow, this is actually fitting to my needs and solving my problems. I'm going to stay over here, make it into my workflow every day, and probably even share it with my team so that they start using it as well. And that's how your product can go viral. So that's how I think there are some similarities, but there are some differences over here, especially meeting developers where they are starting thinking about where they start their journey, what they're trying to accomplish, versus just randomly coming with a product and expecting them to onboard or adopt.
Wow. So looks like there are opportunities very similar to a B2C
Yeah,
product, that you can actually plant those product-led growth things also for your developers, making onboarding easier, making it more self-serve. So there are definitely opportunities out there.
absolutely,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
absolutely.
okay. Yeah. No, that's actually really really glad to hear that. Now, beyond just overall, when you look at the product led growth for any product, while acquisition or onboarding is definitely the most crucial part, I think also what comes subsequently, the part is that, hey, how do you retain them? How do you keep finding them value again and again? Or for example, even how can the product itself be like a flywheel to get more, let's say, developers in this case, or to try the product? So have you seen any kind of success stories, within the products that you have led, or any other products where they have been able to really do this very well?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? How do you retain the customer? How do you build a flywheel that sort of provides value to them? And sometimes the difficult questions always have like simple answers. It goes back to understanding like the user persona, their journey, what are the jobs they're trying to get done, and how can you help them in getting their job done, right? Yeah, day to day, every day, right? So in my product, like when we were building the product, we wanted to understand like this user persona, what are they really trying to do, right? Can we build a product which is obviously easy to onboard and things like that, but also fits into their daily routine, that unknowingly that it becomes a habit for them. It becomes like something that they get habituated to, becomes like a muscle memory, and once it becomes like that, they start sharing it with the team and it goes viral, right? So just to give you an example, we heard from some of our customers, like Azure Monitor customers, application insights customers, that when we built the product for them, we thought about like where do their journey start from? Like monitoring. If folks haven't heard about what monitoring in general is, it's about like knowing the health of your application. So just imagine like a developer working in e-commerce website like Amazon.com, right? And it's Black Friday, and suddenly the application goes down for 20 minutes. Just imagine the amount of loss that Amazon.com will face per second because the application is down. And now that developer is woken up at 2 a.m. in the night that, hey, you get paged, your application is down, fix it. If you don't fix it, there's monetary loss happening. Now this developer is like sweating. He's trying to fix what's happening because his job boss is calling him up. He might lose his job. He needs to go back to sleep as well. So in that moment, how do you basically provide them the things that they're looking for? what's the question they're looking for, the answer they're looking for. The answer is like, hey, tell me what's the root cause of my problem. One, and second, how can I quickly fix it and go back to my sleep, right? That's what you want to answer. That's how you'll retain those customers. If they keep getting the answers over and over again to the questions they want, they will come back. That's one. And the second we heard is like, sometimes the product is so valuable that these guys, one of our customers, they had monitors in their team rooms where they had Azure Monitor dashboards, and they would look at it every day in the morning. So it became a muscle memory for them. Every morning 9 a.m. they would come and they would see the TV screens. Hey, everything is looking green, nothing's red. Great, awesome. We can go back to our job of coding, because monitoring is not their primary job. That's a secondary job. When shit hits the fan, they need to use monitoring to fix things. Primary job is coding. How can you build a product that can help them to get their primary job done, while helping them making sure that the secondary job is being done behind the scenes, and they don't have to pay much attention to that. So that's something that helped us in retaining a lot of customers and providing them value over and over again.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think monitoring, as you said, I mean, I think is a very key aspect where, that would help them to keep coming back and develop a muscle memory over here. Now,
Yeah,
actually, that takes me naturally into my next question, right? I mean, today we are in an era where AI is kind of baked into every, I would say, layer of product development, right? Of course, we have
absolutely.
code being developed in the presentation layer, backend layer. It is kind of still strengthening. Now, you are somebody who has worked on building observability products, right? Can you, for the benefit of our audience, just talk about, first of all, what is observability? That is number one. And number two, can you talk about what changes in this with AI products coming into picture?
Absolutely. So, observability. So let's start with observability first, right? Think about this, right? There are everything in this world today almost is running on some sort of like on-prem or some sort of like cloud. The application, the apps that you use on your phone, the banking app, the Amazon.com like shopping app, like, or booking your flight. Everything is running behind the scenes on a cloud or something of that sort, right? Now, this application needs to be running in a healthy fashion in order to make sure that the end customers, as in you, can buy stuff, or book an appointment with a doctor, things like that, right? Now, as a developer, my job is to not only write a code but to make sure that my website is able to scale when the user starts coming in, when the load starts increasing, right? Instead of crashing and nobody's able to do stuff. You might have seen happens all the time that you try to access the application, it says, oh, it's broken, it's or it's very slow, right? So what observability does is proactively lets you monitor your application, your infrastructure which you are running your applications on, that the end user should not be impacted. So before the application starts breaking, before the application starts going down or it starts becoming slow, our product Azure Monitor will start giving you alerts that, hey, it looks like your virtual machine is running hot. You might want to fix it right now. Otherwise, thousands of users will be impacted. Or it looks like there's a problem in your code. There's something we saw which is incorrect in your code. You might want to fix your code. Otherwise, things will go wrong, and you will start experiencing problems with your end application. So observability basically helps you run your application, mission critical application, in a healthy fashion without downtime in any case. That's what observability is at a very high level. Now, the problem with the products today in observability is, right, there are, the application seems very simple when you use it, right? But behind the scenes, there's a huge amount of stuff running to make that application work seamlessly, right? There's the code layer where a user is writing a code. There's the cloud on which the application is running. There's the database that the application is calling to get signals from. Anything, if anything breaks in this ecosystem, the application goes down, right? Now, in the observability, when the user goes to debug on why this application goes on, there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of signals. There's a database signal, there's a VM virtual machine signal, there's an application signal. So, although there's a lot of data, but you have to make sense of that data on how what's broken, which is very hard for humans sometimes, especially at 2 a.m. when you've woken up and your boss is screaming at you to get your job done. it's very hard because you literally have 20 minutes to fix this, otherwise you might lose your job, right? So in that case, although you have all the data you need in the world, but you don't have time, right? With AI coming into picture, with LLM coming into picture, the AI can sift through all the data and find out like what's benign failures, what's like failure that is okay, but the failure that you should be looking at, anomaly that you should be looking at is this. This might be the probable root cause of failures you might be paying attention to. So
Mm.
AI helps you in basically, maybe in future I saw a new Relic do the demo that just write as in natural language. Hey, I got alerted at middle of the night. What's going on? AI might reply, hey, virtual machine is running hot. Why is it running hot? Tell me. Please fix it. And then you can go back to sleep. So all of this will become much easier with AI coming into picture. We are not there yet, I'd say, but we are getting there. But that's what the end goal will look like.
Yeah, so kind of makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, tying the piece of monitoring that you spoke about, I think predictive analytics, predictive AI is something which
Exactly.
is of a huge value, and of course, probably also from a troubleshooting perspective, natural language processing could again play a huge role for troubleshooting, is what I gather, right? That.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And
So,
then, yeah, go ahead.
no, no, go ahead.
No, I was saying that, like you said, like one is troubleshooting, and then the other part is predictive analytics, where AI can suggest you that, hey, based on the patterns you've observed in the past, the way your application runs, looks like you need to add X, Y, Z to your architecture. Looks like you need to add, more databases to your architecture. This is how you should run your application. Apart from just troubleshooting, it can help you in improving, optimizing your architecture and a code base as well. So
Hmm.
that's another layer of like helpful piece where AI, and with AI agents coming into picture, you can just define the goal that, hey, my goal is to set up a banking application, help me with that, and the AI agent can just go and from the intelligence, they can figure out for a banking application you need a relational versus non-relational database, you need a messaging queue, you need XYZ, all of them come together, and now here you go, you can start coding and here's your application good to go. So all of that can be done as well, based on AI agents where you already have a defined business goal versus generating something from AI.
Right. Currently, Rishabh, what do you think? I mean, right now, I think AI agents is something which is pretty much right now in a lot of exploratory mode in a lot of different organizations, right? Especially from this whole cloud monitoring and developer ecosystem products. How much of do you think can really be automated with agents? Is it to a great extent, or do you believe in the current phase it is very smaller use cases where it can be automated?
I think right now I'd say it's in a nascent stage, but even in the future, one thing that we have heard from our customers over and over again, and the more people I talk to in the industry and conferences, is that there's a reason it's called Copilot versus Autopilot, right? The developers, if I want to speak about specifically this persona developers, they
Mm-hmm.
always want to remain in control, or at least they want to have the feeling of being in control. It's scary for them to completely give their whole control to a autonomous agent, that you do it and I'm going to go back to sleep. They
Yeah.
still want a part of control, but they want agents to do most of the repetitive tasks that they can think about, that they don't have to bother about while they're doing their main job, which is building code, creating things, right? You can spin up my cluster, you can spin up my infrastructure, but the code I want to be able to write. Or when things go down while troubleshooting, tell me, recommend me that I should do this, but don't go and do it yourself, because that might, I don't know, break things. Because if you have a wrong suggestion, so we would always see this tiff between giving complete control versus being in control and having some parts being offloaded to the agents per se.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you are building such mission critical products, you
Yeah,
definitely want to be in control and constantly looking at what the agent is doing.
absolutely, 100%.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, now I'm kind of switching gears a little bit, Rishabh. Now, in a lot of developer-oriented products, for example, if we take about APIs and all that, one of the key aspects there is the amount of documentation,
Hmm.
right? Now I would love to understand here again, uh, from an AI perspective, how much of that shift has happened, it being, the discovery being purely being on documentation versus is it more conversational? Is that space evolving?
Yeah, that's a great point, Malti. I think as we speak, we are seeing immense improvement and like feedback in this area, right? To give you some background, traditionally, what's happened in the developer world is whenever, let's say, a developer hit a roadblock when they're building something, they get an error message while, creating something or troubleshooting something. What they would do is that they would either paste that error message on Google, try to find why they get the error message, or they would go to Stack Overflow, Reddit, in the developer community forums to find out to find out why this happened to them, or they would have to go through multiple documentations to figure out why this is happening and then map to their problem, right? Versus think about right now, which is GitHub Copilot is doing a fantastic job over here. Is when you're writing something, you hit a error, right? Instead of going outside of an IDE where you want to be, you're able to just type in the message, hey, why did I get this, error? And the LLMs and AI can understand the context. They know what language you are writing your code in. They know what project you're working in. They know what is the intent of what's happening, and they can suggest you why this error message came, what patterns you should be following, and recommendation steps you should be taking, completely personalized and contextual to your project, which doesn't happen or did not happen earlier, where they would have to look at somebody else's post who might have written the code in completely different language with a completely different business project intent, right? So
Hmm.
things change drastically when you get things recommended in your context, looking
Hmm.
at your code base and your developer preferences and patterns that you have. So I'd say in the future, or as we speak, this is the future. The things are changing quite a bit for documentation. It's not going to go away. It's still going to be there, but using that documentation as a knowledge base, a lot of that knowledge will be transferred to the IDE, to the platform where the developer is, to give them contextual help in troubleshooting or creating new stuff.
Right. No, that, I
Yeah,
mean, I think for me, it's been about probably close to 16 years since I left coding in
yeah.
my career. But looks like coding and troubleshooting is becoming fun again.
Definitely. I mean, one of the biggest things that developers usually hate is fixing somebody else's code or like fixing somebody else's bugs, right? What they love is writing new code, creating new
Right.
logic, creating new things, right? So how do you help them do that more versus offloading all these mundane, repetitive, boring stuff that they really won't want to put their energy into, right? So that's how you increase. I think GitHub launched recently their stats where they boasted like 35% increase in efficiency overall for people who've been using GitHub Copilot as their AI assistant per se. So that's huge, right? That's a huge number. Um, but that's where we are seeing shift happening towards in the developer community, shifting left as they call it, help
Yes.
developers do what they really want to do, take away the boring stuff from them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I think shift left was something which we started with the QAs, and now we are seeing it is kind of getting optimized. But actually, I want to kind of double down a little bit on that, Rishabh, that you said, right? I mean, you are kind of building more the, I would say, the cloud part of it, which comes with some very inherited features, like, it has to be scalable, it has to be robust, it has to be
Yeah.
extensible. Now, one question I have is that with tools like, Copilot, for example, or for example, GitHub comes with additional tools where nowadays the new buzzword is vibe coding, right?
Mhm.
So, in these kind of mission critical products that you are building, how much of reliability today that you see on vibe coding or the code which is being generated by these tools? So how you as a product leader, how do you see that in terms of actually contributing to the product?
Hmm. You mean like, yeah, for example, GitHub helps in ghost text that can help you write the code. how much reliance or how much is it actually helpful to the developers
I
and
mean,
how
how
much they
much
can
reliable
trust.
is that code quality is my question. And
Yeah,
is it really optimizing developers' time?
yeah. I think if obviously it's not perfect, right? There's a disclaimer that this is a recommendation, suggestion, but I think over time it's just going to keep getting better and better. But two things that I've noticed that really helps in reliability and future proofing is one, there needs to be transparency of how this ghost text or how this code was recommended, what was the basis of that, what was the data that was used, which makes it easy for the developer to understand and rely on it and trust it and use it in their code base. And second is building a very strong feedback loop, right? How do you make sure that if there's always going to be something wrong being suggested out of context, how do you make sure that developers again have the control to dismiss it, use what they want to do it, plus giving the feedback on how or what worked for them, what not worked for them, making the model better and better. So I think having a really strong feedback loop has really helped in improving the performance and improving the efficiency of this. And second, like transparency of even if you provide developers a really good or a perfect code, they still will have questions about it unless you give them transparency of why and where this is coming from. That can be through a confidence score or through something else, but transparency and feedback loop is very important, like building this reliability in this space.
Correct. No, I agree with you. I mean, I think these are again in the initial stages. So, constantly, like how we spoke, human in the loop, building those feedback loops actually helps us to build a more robust and reliable piece of code or piece of software over there. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we spoke about product led growth interventions for these kind of developer tool products, right? We spoke about self serve, onboarding, we spoke about retention. The other part that I would like to move to Rishabh is that in a for example, when I talk about in a typical B2C product, it will be you can what is a this thing that you see from an adoption perspective, what is the engagement, for example, for the tool. So when you're talking about PLG metrics for a developer oriented product, how what
Mhm.
are some of the critical metrics that you look at?
Yeah, I think great question again. I think this is one thing. There's a lot of back and forth that keeps on happening over here. But over time, what we have seen, what works is few metrics. I'd say number one is time to first value. This goes back again to like the aha moment, right? Um, what's the time to the first value the developer sees in the product that you are using, right? Is it under 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, things of that nature, right? Amazon actually does this, and I think they came up with this idea. They call it something like controllable input metrics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wherein basically what happens is that they measure the metrics that they can control internally versus measuring the metrics externally, which they don't have really strong control on, things like stock price or things like customer satisfaction, CSAT. They can have an impact on it, but they cannot like control what the stock price is going to be. But think about this, right? As Amazon or as like a company, you can control the time to first value. Like if you can reduce the time to that first aha moment to 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, whatever is your threshold, you can really impact the output metrics like stock price, CSAT, because that's where user would see value and that would drive the CSAT satisfaction. So the first aha moment is like very critical over here, and every developer tool, depending on what tool you have, will have a different threshold, right? In application insights, we have something called live metrics, right? Basically, when you deploy the application, instead of waiting 10 minutes to monitor and get the telemetry to monitor it, you can get the telemetry within under 1 second, right? So when you deploy the application, you instantly see your telemetry coming in through live metrics. You instantly get that gratification, that value. Okay, one, looks like I made the right configuration. Everything is working end to end, number one. And number two, okay, my application looks healthy. Now I can go back to my work. So that's one, right? Time to first value. Second, I think which is very helpful in terms of businesses. the expansion signal, right? How many users are upgrading to, let's say, a higher plan, right? They use a free tier. How many are upgrading to a freemium tier, right? That is where your PLG is helping to adopt to new features or to adopt to new products, right? So how many of them are adopting or upgrading to a new tier? How many of them are like sharing this to their team members to help in virality, or to help in the what do you call it, the adoption of these particular product, right? And I think third, which kind of overlaps with all these two, but the activation, right? How many percentage of users actually, when they saw the product being nudged to them through the pain of, how many of them actually went through the pain of following the steps to onboard and being there, right? So these three, in some shape or form, they keep changing the name or keep changing a bit of format, but generally at a very high level, these three gives you a good indication of this product-led growth for you. Is it working or not?
Yeah, no, those are fantastic and so much more relatable. So while the context changes for developer focused products, but I think the fundamental principles remains the
True.
same. You just need to
Yeah.
find what is of the, as you said earlier, the value that the developer seeks, or stay in the shoes of your user persona. And I think
Yeah.
automatically based on the context, it kind of flows down.
Absolutely, exactly. At the end of the day, like in fact, like when we are building, developer-focused products, or communities building these products, I see a lot of overlap. Like people getting inspired from Instagram feed and having that feed in like cloud monitoring tools as well. Like I think AWS launched something called Q Developer AI Ops based feature, and they have a very similar feature to Instagram. Just like in Instagram, you have a feed,
Oh, okay.
in that developer product you have a feed where you can see what's happening in your monitoring and things of that nature. So you know it's at the end of the day, the person is same. They might be a developer in their job, but they might be an Instagram user after the job. So if you can find an overlap and provide same kind of experiences even in the developer tool, then the brains are already trained to look at it, right? So I think there's a huge overlap, just that we need to understand, like, where they are, what do they want, what are the jobs that need to get done. But fundamentally, yes, it is
Correct.
the same.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, brilliant example leveraging on familiarity.
Yeah.
I think that's a great example that you called out.
Hmm.
Okay, now probably the last question that I have, Rishabh, is that a lot of what would be your advice, right, for product managers or founders who are building dev-focused product. First of all, what should be the skills, number one, that they should try to build their excellence? And second thing, what are the things that they should watch out for in the coming years?
Yeah, I think starting with skills, right? If your end persona or if your user persona that you're trying to chase is developer, you at least need to understand the language they speak, right? Even if you're not a great coder, you still need to understand, its and bits of coding of what, the structure looks like, what their job is, what their motivations are. So you need to understand a little bit of their lifestyle, their, what things that they do in their everyday. If you don't, then you end up speaking different languages. You're not able to understand their pain points. And I think no matter what field of product management you are in, you need to empathize with the user, right? And the only way you can empathize with your user and build great products for them is when you understand their pain. To understand their pain, you would need to understand like what challenges they're going through with the languages that they speak. So I think that's number one, understanding the language, what they're doing. And number two, I think, is trying to get familiar with the developer community, which is trying to understand like places where developers go. It seems like a huge world, but it's not actually. There are a handful of IDEs that they would like to code in. There are a handful of community forums that they would go and try to search why they are not able to do something. So try to understand the ecosystem and try to get connected in them if you can. And once you do that, then you start seeing value out of that. That's the developer focused PM skills that I would try to learn. But apart from that, there are like fundamental PM skills that you should know about, like communications, understanding the user persona, segmentation. I won't talk about that because that's applicable everywhere, right? And uh, within this, PM skill, I think one thing that's really important is you need to immerse yourselves in your user target users journey, their shoes. You need to understand like when they start their day, where do they start their day? When they arrive at the midpoint of the day, what are they trying to get done? What are the jobs they wanted? What's their primary goal? What's their secondary goal? B- don't try to think about your product right now. Just think about their day. Forget about solution, right? That you think about the problems, right? They're facing. Think about their journey. Once you understand that, then start building a solution that that fits into their workflow, that fits into the day job already that they are doing, versus building something alien. So that's number one, or extremely essential for you to go through. And so that's the skills and the things I would like put my focus on. And to think about like future, I think there's a lot of focus on AI these days. How do we integrate AI, Copilot, ChatGPT, this and that into our product? But I think again, you have to step back and you have to embrace AI thoughtfully. Is AI actually helping in solving the core problem that they're after, the core value? Whenever you create a product, there's a core USP, core value that product is solving. How does that AI align with that core value? Is that really helping with that? If it's not, it's just a gimmick. And although you will be applauded initially that you launch something AI, but the adoption retention is going to be horrible. And I think with the world shifting towards outcome versus output value, you would not see much growth in your area. So those are things I would like suggest at a very high level.
No, I think very, very beautifully summarized both on the skill side. I think as you said, the core PM competencies remains the same, but some very thoughtful things that needs to be kept mindfully for technical products that we speak about, as well as the future, how to get equipped to continue to build such products. So very beautifully summarized. Wow, I didn't realize how the last 30-35 minutes just flew by, Rishabh.
Absolutely.
But those were some really, really valuable insights and I would say nuggets of wisdom for our audience.
Thank you, Malti. It was a pleasure. I love talking to you, and it's always fun to talk about product management and sharing visions and learnings. And this space is evolving so quickly that we will learn new things in the future, and hopefully we get to talk again. I might have completely different thought process in the next 1 year, 2 years, or whenever we meet. So, but yeah, it was lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Pleasure is all mine. And yes, you're right. Especially from a technical product, this whole landscape is evolving so fast. So I'm sure you might have a very different story to tell maybe in the
Yeah,
next 1 year or so.
absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Rishabh.
All right, Malti.
Thank you. If you find value from these conversation, hit that subscribe button. Why? Because every time you subscribe, you help us reach more ambitious product builders, thinkers, founders, and product folks, just like you. And it tells YouTube that yes, this content matters. HSB integrates timeless leadership principles with a cutting edge curriculum to give graduates an edge in the market. Through partnerships with companies and academic institutions within India and abroad, HSB graduates have a boundless opportunities worldwide.